your body wants to be fat. And as long as it wants to be fat, there's nothing you can do to stop it. And even now as I say this, 20 plus years, I get goosebumps.
So, okay, now you have to deconstruct that for us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
As they say now, unpack it.
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's unpack, because what happened at that point is that I stopped dieting because I realized it wasn't addressing the issue, and I started asking the question, why does my body want to be fat? And that led me on an approach that not only healed me, but then I wrote the book, The Gabriel Method, which really is about, hey, these are the reasons why your body would want to be fat.
So what did your body tell you? Why did you want to be fat?
So what happens is your body gets certain hormonal signals that it confuses. For example, stress, and I was living in a very high stress
on Wall Street,
will cause certain hormonal signals to your body that it will confuse as like a famine, for example. Because when we were living out in the wild thousands of years ago, there was only two types of stress. There was immediate acute stress, like, you got to run away or you're going to die, or there was a chronic low-grade stress.
Like famine.
That's the only one thousands of years ago. So our bodies are hardwired to interpret chronic low-grade stress, not acute stress, but chronic low-grade stress as a famine. So today...
So your life on Wall Street, the stress of day-to-day transactions was chronic low-grade stress.
Chronic low-grade, nonstop.
And oftentimes, people will use food, they'll use drugs, whether it's cocaine or whatever. Wolf on Wall Street, all of the above.
Yeah, exactly, to turn those signals off.
Right.
But what the main signal that it's for certain people, and for me in particular, is your body actually thinks it's a famine. And the thing is, if you're in a real famine, once you start eating, you're not in a famine anymore. So your body's like, I'm good. But if your body's getting the famine signal and it's not coming from food, then it doesn't matter how much you eat, it's still getting the famine signal, and that's how you end up.
Because the stress continues even though the food supply is there.
Hormonal signal is, the message is chronic low-grade stress. So chronic low-grade stress, chronic low-grade inflammation are the two things that cause your body to gain weight, and those are the things that you have to address.
Was there anything deeper psychologically?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what else was saying, I want to be fat, your body wants to be fat?
So a lot of people have trauma issues, and that actually makes them feel safer in a bigger body.
To be buffered.
Yeah, and I've worked with people, years now. I mean, I wrote the book, 15, 20 years ago, but I talked to people, and I remember talking to this one lady, and she was with her sister at a store, and some handsome guy walked in, and she thought the guy was looking at her sister, and she goes, oh, I'm safe, he won't look at me, because I have the extra weight, I'm safe. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, as long as you have that feeling like that's what's keeping you safe, there's no way your body's going to let go of the weight.
That's true. And a lot of women who, especially if they've been through a violent situation or sexual abuse in particular, this can very easily become a default pattern to buffer yourself from the pain.
And for me, that wasn't my issue, but I did live through abuse, physical abuse, growing up. And I felt safer being bigger. And I did have a business partner when I was working on Wall Street who was a very aggressive guy. And there was a part of me that the child inside was actually afraid of him.
Oh, sure. So you got a lot of buffer going there.
So at a certain point, I was twice his weight, and I thought I could sit on him.
Did that help you feel more powerful?
It did. It helped me feel safer in the situation.
Wow.
Because his communication style was very aggressive, and growing up, that type of aggressive communication usually led to a physical confrontation. Mm-hmm. Now we never had a physical confrontation, but my body always felt like, okay, I'm not safe in this situation. Mm-hmm. Until I was twice his size. And when I was twice his size, I thought, he can't touch me. I could just sit on him.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So because a lot of women are watching this, and a lot of women who relate and have been through this, and even if they don't know yet consciously that this is a safety issue more than anything else. But also, what about the woman man or woman, who are the nurturers? For example, healthcare professionals, nurses, oftentimes end up bringing a lot of treats to work to soothe themselves and be friends with one another and pick up a fair amount of weight in that profession. That seems to be pretty common.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons. One of them, they could have that trauma also, but the other is, it's a way of giving yourself love if you're not getting enough love, or
if you're giving all your energy away.
Yeah, if you're depleted, or if you're not having enough fun in your life, you're not having enough love, enough connection, food can fill that void also, and that's really common.
So that's not so much a safety one, it's a lack of affection, love, or whatever it is that gives you joy.
Exactly. It's another form of nourishment. You know, food is nourishment, right? So is love, so is friendship, so is connection.
So where did your understanding of how to bust this come in? Because we're going to start talking about parallel realities and such that are where you are now in your life. But at the time, you were actually using these principles and maybe didn't understand them as completely as you do now?
No, and I didn't. And not until it was 2006, and we can get to that.
Okay, tell us what happened up till then when you started losing the weight with this whole internal aspect.
Yeah, as soon as I made the realization that I have to figure out what's causing my weight, I quickly realized that there was a lot of emotional trauma that I had to deal with, which I did deal with. I understood that also I wasn't nourishing my body well enough, and that's another thing that can cause you to, because no matter how much you're eating, if you're not getting the nourishment you need,
you're still,
nutrients. It's like a nutritional famine.
Yeah.
You're getting all the calories, but you're not getting the nutrients, you know. And if your stomach isn't able to digest it also because you have microbiome issues. So I started healing my microbiome. I started nourishing my body by adding healthier foods. Healing my trauma, and I did a lot of visualization. And visualization was something that I learned as a 10-year-old. My father taught me visualization when I was 10. I had horrible migraine headaches. Every single night, nothing would work. Aspirin wouldn't work. I would sit in a dark room for hours and just like be in pain. And he was a dentist, and he used visualization to help people with pain in his profession. And so he sat me down, he calmed my body. He said, I want you to imagine that we're skiing down this slope. We used to go skiing together. And there's this bucket of black sand on your shoulder. And as you're skiing down, you're tilting the black sand, and it's falling away as you're skiing. And that black sand is your headache. And we got halfway down, and so now the headache's halfway down, halfway gone. And it was. We got down to the bottom, and the headache was gone.
What a beautiful gift.
Yeah. He gave me that. And it was like, it was the only thing that worked. And then I learned how to do it myself, you know, this whole visualization. And then eventually I could do things like I just visualize, like usually when you have a migraine headache, it's on one side or the other. So say if it's on this side, I would visualize the headache just going into my finger and flicking it away, and it would go. And I never had migraine headache after that.
So you'd already learned how to work with the mind as a young'un.
Yeah. And I did it to stop smoking. When I was 14, I visualized that, the tar in the street that's really repulsive when they're...
Yeah.
So I visualized that the cigarette was that tar, and I would visualize tasting it as like being repulsed by it. So creating this negative association with visualization, and that worked really well. And so I've used visualization in many different things. I started using visualization to create my perfect ideal body. As I was going to sleep at night, I visualized having stomach muscles and being in shape again. Because I was an athlete in school. I was a ski racer and a triathlete. And, I was in great shape. So every night as I was going to sleep, I visualized my ideal body.